So Nintendo did something really weird this generation and didn't launch their brand new Nintendo Switch 2 system with a big 3D Mario or 3D Zelda or some big game like that. They went with Mario Kart, which is like a very high-selling game, obviously. You look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but really when you look at the history of Nintendo systems, they pretty much always launch with a 3D Mario game, and we finally got a taste of that through Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Product provided by Nintendo. Thanks, Nintendo.
Basically marrying 3D Mario with 2D Donkey Kong and throwing in a lot of Mario Odyssey. We'll get into that. So this game basically launching with the system more or less within a month of it, as well as being a return to form for Donkey Kong, has a lot of people asking a lot of questions. So today we're going to see why Donkey Kong Bonanza is as good of a f***ing game as it is, because it bangs in every single way, as well as why Nintendo took this kind of strange approach with the Nintendo Switch 2, so let's get into things. First of all, it's been 8 years since the last mainline 3D platformer really of any sort, right? The last one we saw was Mario Odyssey in 2017 in that first year of the Nintendo Switch. So everybody naturally thought we would follow up that game with an Odyssey 2 or something like that down the line, or just a new 3D Mario in general after the experimentation they did with Bowser's Fury. But really, what we got here was a blending of two different platforming styles. The tough as nails 2D Donkey Kong franchise was finally brought back into 3D after the shit show that was Donkey Kong 64, and now they're finally able to sort of wash their hands with that one and move on and create a new 3D Donkey Kong that cements why Donkey Kong can translate into this new dimension. And now personally, I beat the game start to finish, loved it all, did that baddie on stream, and it is one of my favorite games I have ever played. So, I've got a lot to say. To set the scene of Donkey Kong, you have to know that we have not gotten a 3D Donkey Kong since they experimented with it back in the 90s with Donkey Kong 64, and that game was not something that people talk about with fondness. Now, some of you might at home have a lot of nostalgia for this game. If you grew up on it, you're gonna like it. It's how shit works, blah, 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 blah. You guys have heard me talk about the nostalgia goggles multiple times on this channel alone. So I won't dive too far into that aspect of it, but just know Donkey Kong 64 is not a good game, and I implore you to go back and play it now and see how you feel, because it really is not what you're remembering, okay? I have tried to play it a few times. It's just not my thing. Frankly, I don't even really like Mario 64, so 64 and I, we don't really get along. We're a little detached here. But I was really nervous about them going back into 3D with Donkey Kong because it feels like they finally hit their stride with 2D Donkey Kong games. Obviously, back in the day on the SNES, we got that original trilogy of iconic DK games. People don't even like 3 for some reason, but frankly, I think it's a really good one. Not maybe a must-play, but like if you like all the other ones, it's a banger. And then they got kind of weird with it for a while. We got Donkey Kong 64, then we got Donkey Konga on the GameCube. A very weird game, but honestly, it was kind of fun, and randomly, I think, from what I've heard online, check this with your sources, but I'm pretty sure some of the team that worked on this game started on those games as well, like Donkey Kong and stuff like that, so that was really interesting to learn. But that was like a good little attempt. We got Barrel Blast, that was crazy, but then we finally got back to tried and true Donkey Kong with Donkey Kong Returns, and then following up that, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time. So naturally, loving those original 2D games, I was a little bit nervous to see that Donkey Kong was headed straight into the third dimension. Obviously, there was a big part of me that was excited, because for a lot of people, they're kind of discounting 2D platformers these days. Everything that's big and new is in 3D and fully embraces, new age technology and all that kind of shit. So I think, that's fair. And to see what Donkey Kong had to do in 3D was really enticing to me. But initially, in those initial trailers, I was a little bit worried until I saw this gameplay presentation a few months back, and I realized that this game was far better than I ever thought it was going to be. Pauline is here, the gameplay loop looks addictive and beautiful, and basically what they did here is take one of the coolest moments of Mario Odyssey, and this is a slight spoiler for that game, so skip ahead by 10 seconds if you don't want to hear it. Obviously, you play as Bowser, right, for that last part, and you're just smashing everything, and they took that mechanic and threw it into DK, and it's gorgeous. So the team making this game is Nintendo EPD8, right? Their team that made Mario Odyssey, basically. That was their big thing, and everybody was talking about this before the launch of Donkey Kong. And because of this, you can see a lot of the bones of Mario Odyssey throughout this game. It's a very different game than what that was, but at the core of it, you know that, like, Banandium is your power moons. You know that, the way the world is kind of set up and how you're digging down to each new layer is kind of the same that you're like, flying the Odyssey from one area of the world to the next, right? The format and the layout is similar in a way. You can customize DK, they have little fun stuff like that, how they did in Odyssey, but the actual gameplay is incredibly different. Obviously, there's no cappy mechanic, and instead you're just berating this entire terrain, and it's kind of super fun. And really, what this game showed us is that Donkey Kong does have a lot of staying power in the 3D genre, but what it did is fully carve out its own path here. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this is a game unlike pretty much any others you guys have played. Fully breakable terrain all around you is something that's pretty unheard of and honestly made the system chug slightly. It should try to keep up with it because of how much destructible shit there was. But we'll get into the performance aspect a little bit later. So the gameplay, first and foremost. You're breaking everything. You're trying to get and collect different Banandium gems. Once you get a Banandium gem, you have like one Banandium point, and then you can exchange that in a skill tree. Yes, I said it, a skill tree for further abilities to enhance the gameplay of Donkey Kong. He has really good movement. It feels really fluid and nice, like how it felt in the 2D platforming games, except here it's just really, really fun. There's this combo of like roll off a cliff, you jump, and then you roll out of it and you punch, and the airtime you get is absolutely gorgeous, and you can do some really cool stuff. You can also climb just about any terrain you see here, and there's no stamina wheel, so Donkey Kong is going for a while. There's never anything too huge to really climb up, obviously, but just the fact that it's so easy and fun and fluid to move around makes this game just a joy to play. You have this ground pound ability that when you do so, you are able to find little like hidden collectibles in the level. So if you do that and there's Banandium sort of nearby, you can go and you can look for that. And as you progress through this game, it feels like you start to get sort of a eye for where Banandium might be hiding and where you can find it and that kind of deal. Then there's obviously a punch and some attacks that you can do. His movement altogether, it's pretty simple. It's pretty understandable. It's a platformer with a punch and some destructibility. It's fun. Alright, I interrupted this video to bring you a message from our sponsor, KontrolFreek. Thank you so much for sponsoring the video. So let me tell you about these Minecraft Switch 2 no-slip thumbstick grips. They bang. I love to put these little baddies on my controllers when I'm getting sweaty and need a little bit more support in a game or something like that. They also include these ones that have risers on them for a more precise gameplay. Very helpful when you're doing like a first-person shooter, third-person shooter even. I literally cannot play Fortnite on the Switch 2 without these. I have used them on my original Switch 1 Pro controller for a very long time, so I'm super hyped to get these baddies and throw them on my Switch 2 Pro controller because, we gotta upgrade a little bit. Plus, it's Minecraft! Don't you guys F with Minecraft? But really what these are so cool for is some customization and a lot of grip to your controllers. So thank you so much, KontrolFreek, for sponsoring this video. And if you guys are interested in picking up one of these baddies to elevate your gameplay, go ahead and check out my link in the description down below, and let's get back to the video. Now, the special part I think about this game is not just that initial gameplay, it's also the amount of love and care packed into this game. With every single new area you're going to go into, you're going to see secret levels, you're going to see, challenge rooms, things like that really test your abilities in a way. Not to in a crazy extent, because this game is fairly easy comparatively to the rest of the franchise, but it was really just fun to find these little areas, and you can go and it fully switches up the gameplay, right? We're going into 2D now, and it feels like almost when you found those hidden little pipes in the walls of Super Mario Odyssey, and then you become 2D Mario and you're going to the little 8-bit Power Moon. They didn't take it quite that far, but it does just throw you into what a new age 2D Donkey Kong game could look like, and it made me want it so, so bad. So I am praying that 2D DK and 3D DK can coexist with one another, so that we can get something as cool as this level freaking looks. There's challenge rooms where you're trying to break as much stuff as you can, you're throwing explosive, and it just basically allowing you to further test out and practice Donkey Kong's moveset. One thing that I have a little bit of a pet peeve with is some of the combat rooms are just kind of boring. They're like easy to get through, so it doesn't feel like too much of a challenge, and you just kind of zoom through it without much thought. And then there's other levels where you're really looking for all 3 of the Banandium gems, and it takes a while to really find them. So I did find myself stumped and wanting to explore and looking and fully like breaking all of this area and all of this level to get that single one Banandium gem. So that was kind of fun as well. And the thing about this exploration loop is that it really never goes stale, because if you get bored with normal platforming, bing, bang, boom, break your way through the world and make your way through it that way. It's really just so interestingly mixed up constantly that you never feel like you're getting tired of a certain mechanic or certain levels or something like that. One of the big things here is obviously our Bonanza transformations. Donkey Kong can become Big Donkey Kong. He can become this zebra baddie, and then there's some other ones I don't really want to spoil, but that, and then an ostrich guy, and then some other ones down the line that are really cool. These are awesome because they play homage in a big way to those original animal buddies that you constantly picked up in the original trilogy on the SNES. So that was pretty cool, and I just felt like it was really, paying its respect to where Donkey Kong came from. And as someone who recently beat all of those games and really experienced them, in the last year or so, like, it felt like a cool inside joke, I guess, to be a part of, or just like a cool reference to understand and know. Each one of these transformations changes up the gameplay. The zebra, you run hella fast. The big DK guy, you can just break all of these basically unbreakable blocks usually. And then the ostrich, you can hover for a little bit longer and do your baddie stuff with that. Each new area you go to and you explore, you meet those NPCs that'll basically end up being the types of characters that you end up unlocking in the Bonanza transformations, and it's really cool. There's always some big elder that kind of leads you through the way, and once you get like halfway through the game, you start to kind of get a feel of the outline of where this game is going to go. There's some big bad boss somewhere that you have to sort of defeat. Then you get to the Bonanza transformation area where you talk to an elder, you get this new ability, then you put the new ability to the test while going up against the big bad of the whole area and doing another boss fight. So per area, there are, 1 to 2 different boss fights, and these are always pretty good. I found them fairly easy, except for the ending ones were actually quite challenging. And skip ahead like 10 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled. 3, 2, 1. King K. Rool, come on, baddie. What do you mean? I can't believe he was in this game. The most crazy reveal of all time is when I was playing this on stream and I run into that guy. Literally insane. Okay, we're back now from the skip. If you didn't want to hear that little tiny spoiler, that's a pretty big deal. The boss fights as a whole, though, were really fun because you just get to fully utilize your new transformation to its new heights, right? And this game is a lot more challenging if you don't utilize those transformations, but a lot of times in the boss battles, it just felt like it was cheat. Like, it was just additional difficulty for the sake of additional difficulty if you didn't want to transform into them. And sometimes I feel like you needed to. It might be doable without it. Maybe I do a little naked run, basically, like how in Breath of the Wild you go up against Ganon with nothing except for those bombs. Maybe that's what I try to do. No transformations. I bet it's possible. And one of the last major things about, the gameplay itself is the controls and the UI. Everything feels smooth to pull off and fun, and it's really easy to find everything and to continue to progress through that skill tree, unlocking new and interesting abilities that you are just really like naturally evolutionary to what you already have in your arsenal. It's fun. And the world of this game, like I touched on slightly earlier, is one of the best worlds I think Nintendo has ever built. It feels lived in. All of the characters, they feel like they're naturally supposed to be there. It feels just organic and fun, and you're meeting this whole new cast of characters that feels like it fits right into this world. Nothing feels out of place or weird or anything like that. It just feels like some creativity that they've gone down the rabbit hole with, and it's gotten really cool. Like, one of the last things when you meet Dixie Kong and Diddy and you do their little race, awesome, dude. I'd love to see Diddy Kong Racing come back. I can't believe it's been so long. We can't talk about Barrel Blast, but come on, I would love something like that. It would go so hard. And there's just so many layers of exploration because each and every zone feels new and interesting. There's some new mechanic to figure out here, and it's just like fun to continue down this path, And this game, in a lot of ways, feels like the true Switch to, first-party experience. Mario Kart World is a great game if you are a fan of Mario Kart, but this is that single-player experience that I think a lot of people have been sort of like hungry for on the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, when the original Switch came came out, you had Breath of the Wild to tide you over for 100 hours or so. But Mario Kart World, as fun as it is with friends, you want something that really just shows off like why you should be getting the Switch 2. And that's usually something more than like a classic co-op-y racing game that's fun with your friends, but alone can be a bit boring sometimes. This game really shows that Nintendo is open to taking risks and doing weird shit just for the sake of some fun sometimes. Does it chug occasionally frame rate wise when you're in the middle of huge crazy boss battles with a lot of elements going on and the whole world is destructible? Yeah, unfortunately that is the truth of the matter. But I think that's kind of a small price to pay for the fact that Nintendo really unleashed their creativity here and showed up and showed out for this game. It's like, you know, we thought Mario Odyssey was crazy because, oh my god, you can capture and play as all these enemies we've known for years, but this shit is insane. A platformer where you can break the platforms. Come on. And that really reflects in the, review scores of this game. IGN gave it a 10, they loved it. Nintendo Life gave it a 9. All the outlets were really high praise with this game, and I, for one, love it. And I am very high praise as well because I genuinely, there was nothing that I didn't absolutely adore about this game. Like, some points of the camera drifting off to the side, that's annoying. But at the end of the day, it's a small little thing and a really, really great game. And no game has like zero flaws, right? So like the fact that there's just a couple things here, some things that maybe could even be ironed out with an update or slightly more powerful hardware, but the game itself, at the core of it, this game is so, so fun, and it really just made itself like just fully enjoyable and something that I really just embraced and got excited to play every single time I picked up the controller. And the thing about this game is that I think it transcends Donkey Kong. It's not just a good Donkey Kong game. This is a great 3D platformer. It stands up with the, the icons of the genre like Mario Odyssey, and more recently Astro Bot, which was also a really cool, 3D platformer. That game was awesome. But now it's like these three pillars, Astro Bot's kind of tried and true, world skippy. Mario Odyssey is more like experimental and kind of interesting with the power-ups and stuff like that. And DK Bonanza is a whole new 3D platforming genre of its own, basically. It's crazy. At the end of the day, the fact that everybody was worried about what a 3D Donkey Kong could be after this game, and they threw this game away and showed us that they know what they're doing with Donkey Kong. They know how to set it apart from the rest of the Nintendo 3D platforming franchises. They know what makes DK special and his moveset and the lore and the characters. It really just shows so much love and passion towards this franchise, and I absolutely adore that, because this, again, is literally my favorite franchise of all time, mates. Does it sound like MVG? That kind of bang. But, I love it. Like, I just think it's so, so fun. The gameplay, while being, the gameplay was so different and kind of weird to get a hang of at first, but once you grasp onto it and the amount of different moves you can do, it's crazy cool. Just the things you can string together, it feels as good as playing like Tropical Freeze, but now it's brought into 3D, and it's really interesting and fun. Let's kick up the difficulty slightly next time, a little bit earlier on, but other than that, I really truly enjoyed this game a lot, and I think it's gonna stand up there with the best of Nintendo's platformers at this point. Let me know how you felt about 3D DK. Is that something that you ever thought was possible for the franchise? And do you think it shows the power of the Switch 2? And did it convince you to maybe even buy one? I would love to know all of that and more down in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, drop it a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Check out this video. It's a banger. It's a vibe. It's a good time. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you to our sponsor, KontrolFreek. I appreciate you. Goodbye.